Hello. I'm very
Hello.
happy to present Mr. Stunt Rock Confusion. Hello.
Hello, Michael.
Great to have you here. Let me do a brief introduction, why we do this, how we do this. Maybe some of you who watch this right now knows my new records videos. In those new records videos, I talk about electronic avant-garde stuff and show those records when I get them. But the big problem is when I get those, most of them are gone for good because they don't do much of them. And this is, of course, a big problem for people who are interested in that kind of stuff. And so Stunty and me, we developed the idea of doing it when it makes sense, meaning when you can pre-order those. The problem is that this is a true jungle, trust me. So many. And of course, if you're not totally into this stuff, quite some where you don't know what is it? Is it worth my time? Is it worth my shelf space? Is it worth my money? And I'm so happy that Stunty agreed to do this series because he is a journalist, a music journalist. He has a pressing plant. He knows this, let's call it avant-garde music. He was or is a musician. It's unbelievable that we can share and that he is willing to share his knowledge. And he got through all this stuff, this upcoming stuff, and took those titles for us where he thinks that they are worth our time, shelf space, and money. So that as a brief introduction, Christian.
Yeah. It's me and Michael. We've known each other for about 2 years now, and we've done shows together on various topics. But like, what got us together first was obviously the music, because you say avant-garde and stuff. I would say rather new music that is about now, that is relevant. Not music that like we like as well. Like we like bands that are fans of the Beatles, fans of Jimi Hendrix, of Led Zeppelin, and who do stuff that people who like these bands like today. But we also like modern pop music, avant-garde music, and stuff that your neighbor doesn't know. And why the reason why these records are more difficult to get is because, as you said, they are more limited, and they're more limited because there's a smaller audience for them, because most of the time these are new artists, so it's just mechanical. Like we're going to talk today about some artists that have been around for quite some time, even if they are still under the radar for the mainstream audiences, and some artists that are releasing their very first record for the first time. So sometimes they will have 500 copies, 1,000, 800. Sometimes it will be as little as 300 copies, 100 copies. So today, the scale of the pressing numbers we're going to talk about is between 100 copies and 1,000. But these records that we've selected are records that really are worth your while in different styles of music, but that even if you're not that familiar with these types of music, there shouldn't be that much of a challenge if you're just into music and into being confronted with stuff that is creative and that like challenges your ear and your mind, but not in a way that is necessarily confrontational. It's more like, wow, these ideas are cool. I'm so happy I discovered that. So on my show, on my channel, my streams, like I play that kind of music, but I play all kinds of music. And today we're gonna go through. We decided to do this like a couple of weeks ago or so. So there was not much lead, So I had to go with the stuff that is being put to pre-orders for now. Not stuff. Also, we decided to be gentle and to highlight releases that are gonna be out in the next 1 or 2 months or the next few weeks. Not stuff that you have to wait 6 months either. There might be sometimes, if you guys like it, we might shoot ourselves in the foot and talk about these releases that are amazing, that are limited to 25 copies, that we want as ourselves and that you might prevent us from getting if you're into that. We'll see about that. But like, if you are into records for the music, but you also have kind of like you enjoy the collecting aspect. I know some of your some of the regular audience of your channel, Michael. There's this guy called what's his name? The Syndicate Insider. He acknowledges, like, he buys all these MoFi, these analog productions, but he's a collector. He likes to have something special. We're gonna talk about only records that are special because of the music and because they're new, and also technically they are limited even more so than any of these records that you are usually confronted with, because the numbers are, well, they're just checking if there is an audience for that.
Yeah, and one important point, and I'm so happy that Stunty agrees to doing it. When the records we talk about today, Stunty will do on the upcoming Friday on his channel a live stream and gets a bit deeper into those artists. Of course, he can't play pre-order titles, but he has stuff which is quite similar or records from this very artist. So that when you are interested, go to his live stream on Friday, and you can get much deeper into it. And what also will be on Stunty's channel, there will be the list of the titles with links and everything. Stunty will provide that on his channel. There is a channel to his there is a link to his channel in the video description. So if you're really interested into that stuff, and we both hope you are, then this will be on Friday, the follow-up to this stream.
This is a joy for us to do, but it's also meant as a service, but also like a thank you to our audience, like to help you out, to be like us, in the sense that, like, some people listen to us, which puts us as a sort of authority figure. Like, for us, it's very pleasant if we can talk on the same level about all these things. So, of course, in order to do that, there is a lot of work.
Yeah.
For the past 20 years, I've been, as soon as it was possible to do that with internet, before that, in the 90s, early 2000s, I was going to the record store several times a week and reading as much as I could. But every day, because I was the editor of a music magazine, I still get like 200 promos a day digitally, plus the fact that I get lists from distributors, and I also check every week the new listings of every genre of music that comes out on vinyl, and I go through everything. Even the stuff I know is crap, I check it, I listen to audio clips, just in case there was something surprising. If someone who's a terrible, in my opinion, artist woke up to a genius idea for one track or more. And yeah, that is quite exhausting psychologically, to go through all the... Imagine you basically are going through a pile of steaming shit to try to find jewels. That's what we do, and hopefully you will agree with some of the choices we present to you today. And this is the first time we do it, so the way we're going to present it is we hopefully we will manage to do it in a good way. Hopefully we'll manage to do it better the next time. It's a trial by error.
Exactly, it's a learning curve. Yeah,
exactly.
And of course, when Stunty shows the records, feel free to ask questions or give us serious comments. Of course, that's the positive thing of a live stream, and let's do that. If you have questions, if you have some things to share, do it. We will put them on stream. And of course, Rachel saved us today. She really did. After her own 3.5 hour live stream, because we had technical difficulties, she really helped us once more. For those of you who doesn't know Rachel's Ghost, check out her channel, and she will put up the pictures Stunty provides us. So thank you once more, Rachel, for helping us out. Okay, shall we start with the first title? Okay.
So we're going to start with Aylen Hawley, an artist that is completely new to me. It is her first album. She's an Irish singer. She's part of an indie band I didn't know of. Maybe I knew, but like maybe I heard the music, probably because they released some vinyl, but it didn't impact me. This record is a little bit different from her usual stuff, and it is pop music influenced by Autechre. We know a pop singer who was deeply influenced by Autechre. This is Sophie, who passed away a few years ago, and she was great. This is very different, which shows that you can do it in a very different way. It's more folkish, like with some field recordings and abstract sounds, very lush, but with some abrasion. It is lush but abrasive. So Rachel, if you can put like the Aylen Hawley picture on screen, if we manage, because of course we appreciate also you guys listening to this French and this German guy trying to pronounce all these Anglo-Saxon names in a way that works out for you to understand. And this is released on a label called Touch Sensitive. Exactly, that's the one. And it's they pressed it 300 copies only. I think there's an exclusive color somewhere available somewhere, and that is also 300, so it's 600 copies. It is very catchy. It is very beautiful music. The one that is available, distributed normally, is I think is a mint green color. I've got a record from that label that sounded very good, like nothing to say bad about the quality of the pressing. I know a lot of you care a lot about that. These records, also the good stuff is that most of these records are regular records. You're gonna get them for between 15 and 25 euros or bucks, like as a normal. It's not like an expensive high yeah, you know,
one question, one general question, Stunty. Is it true when I say that for this kind of records we show here, we have it easier here in Europe than Americans? Is there, because most of this stuff you get over at Bleep, Bleep, Sound Ohm, and sites like that?
Well, since the thing is that like the tradition of the big online shops for the most relevant new pop music or avant-garde pop music are British. Now there are a few alternatives in continental Europe, but now still the best are in the UK. And so we are on the same level as Americans. Now we also have to pay the taxes. But like we'll talk about where you can get these records, of course. But there will be a link on my upcoming stream on Friday. But it is getting easier. You have also to remember that all these records back in the 90s, before the internet, if you were like way away from where the record was distributed, you would never see it. You would never hear about it. Now we have this advantage that even if you're in Tanzania or in New Zealand or in Chile, these records are available. Like, of course, shipping will be expensive, but now shipping is expensive everywhere.
That's
you have
true.
to consider, these records have a somewhat normal price for today, or at least me who press records for a living and who knows what a record should actually cost, considering everything that is part of the industry. Records compared to inflation, the price, I'm sorry to say, is often quite fair for new records that are not more than 40 euros.
Stunty, careful. Yeah, really, that depends. If you see those tone poets or the analog production stuff, which is completely produced in the United States, that really gets expensive here right now.
Yeah, but that's the kind of record I was talking about, that the label has also, on top of all the costs, had to pay a license to the original label, which is
exactly.
why these records should cost more. Of course, if you hire Bernie Grandman to do the mastering, he costs maybe a little more than if you hire Rashad Becker, who is a big name for us in Europe for this kind of music. But like the reality is the extra cost should only be because of the cost of the licensing for these records. Like the stuff we're talking about now is either brand new, so no development cost, or just the development cost of the artist, or none if there's none, or if it's a reissue, often it's from the same label that put it out originally. So the next one we're gonna talk is a band that is not unknown at all. This is Beak. Beak, you know Beak, Michael, right?
Yes, I know them.
Beak is Geoff Barrow from Portishead. And since he stopped Portishead, and even before, he's been doing that band that is dear to him. I've seen him live in a cafe in Paris, like in a very, very small venue. He cares so much about the music that he's not like, he doesn't crave the big store venues and status and stuff like that. This is a record that comes out on his own label, Invada, that puts out a lot of soundtracks. This is the soundtrack he did for a comic book, a graphic novel, that is being produced currently by Ben Wheatley, one of the greatest current UK director. Very edgy movies. He did an adaptation of Gigi Ballard, and this is coming out very soon. And it's not going to be, it's a 10-inch LP, mini LP. And it's not going to be like the biggest kinds of pressing. It's more like a little guilty, not guilty pleasure, but like they treated themselves by releasing that. It's like it's a side project of a side project in a way, releasing that. So the numbers, they didn't communicate on that, but I know how it works. I actually know where it's being pressed, and I know that it's not a big pressing at all. So if you like Beak, which is how should I put it? It's basically a krautrock band by an English guy from Portishead. So it's you get both of this. It's kind of like very post-punkish krautrock. I don't know how this one is going to sound. There's no clips anywhere, but it's going to go fast.
But the self-title is a fantastic album.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolute highlight. Yeah. You play something from it on your stream on Friday?
Maybe. I'll see if Beak. I've seen. I think totally. I've seen them 3 times, and it was every time it was surprising. It's not a band I went with like high expectations, and every time they surpassed my expectations. And he puts out so many, not that many records, but he has quite a catalog that, weirdly enough, many hardcore Portishead fans have never even realized that he has this band that has been producing a lot of great stuff that should appeal to them, even if the singing is different than Portishead, obviously. So next is also an artist that you actually know, Caitlin Aurelia Smith.
Yeah.
This is she's done quite a few records over the years. She really, I think her big break was in 2016. She did a great album, and she also did this record with Suzanne Ciani. But yeah, this is the current one that just came out, that is coming out this week on Ghostly International, Canadian label.
Okay. How many copies, Stunty? You know that?
I don't know, but I know the previous one she did was 500 on vinyl. Yeah. And this is like what they call hyper pop, but much better. It's there's lots of like acoustic instruments, lots of strings treated, but like lots of resonance from like very ample and deep acoustic sounds like that are confronted with very sci-fi electronic sounds, extremely good production. She is a sound artist before being, she's a trained pianist and guitar player, I think, if I remember correctly, but she's really the whole deal. There's also some vocals, not necessarily all like in a song structure, but it is a record that is really much now and a little bit tomorrow. And yeah, it's a record that I don't get all her records, but I think I'm gonna get that one because for me she's kind of a marker of our time. Sometimes she will
Exactly.
be, yeah,
And
she will be,
she's very prolific, by the way. You don't have
yeah,
to wait that long for a new album. But let's make a short break because we have this what Nicolas Misura said. Yeah, the famous Discogs text you gave me. This
yeah.
text will also be so for everybody who's just here because of this text. Stunty will put this text, a download for this text, also on his Friday stream. So there you can download this text. Go there on Friday. So for everybody who's just here for this text, you will get it. You will get it the upcoming Friday on his stream for download or copy. You can copy paste. He will
Yeah,
provide.
I've been buying records from Discogs since day one because I listen to every kind of music, and I want to have the best stuff I know exists. So Discogs is the only place, and it's the best place. And of course, like you, I had my share of bad experiences, but I've came up with over the year like some messages, some words to put the sellers on the spot so that the mistakes don't happen. So yeah, and you told us about the results of that.
But this has specific reasons. I think if you
Yeah.
order regular releases, you won't have those.
And by the way, you are much correct. She put out another album this year, a few months ago, a collaboration with someone.
Yes.
I think it was more like a COVID record, something that she recorded with someone in isolation, mostly field recordings and piano and voice, and it was pretty good. It was like I was so close to getting it, and maybe I will get it eventually. But in the end,
Yeah, because I remember, Stunty, we discussed several times about her, and I remember a year, 1.5 years ago, you wasn't that fond of her, but in my opinion, she grows over time. She gets better and better in the way. Do you agree or see that differently?
Yeah. I think, she's, that's the beauty with some artists where you see that every record, there is tangible progress, like tangible, like in the 90s, every time there was a new Autechre record, like they were always a little ahead of you in a way. They were always a little ahead of you. Like the new record came out and like, shit, I don't know if I like this. It took you a little time to catch up with the zeitgeist that they were already giving you. And she is one of these kind of artists, even if it's way more pop than Autechre. I would say that like she's a little more experimental than Björk, but like if you like Björk and that kind of stuff, it is towards that. And Manfred, no, it's not frowned upon to present albums by well-known artists in this show. It will be seldom, but it will happen, and it will happen today actually as well. And so the next one is an artist that was not completely new to me. I knew him under another name. He's a Greek musician. The name the name on the cover is in Greek, but it's Veslemes, Rachel, an album called The Well on Macadam Mambo, a French label from Lyon by a guy who's one of a really great curator of new music. And I just saw this recently announced. It was a record that was supposed to come out some time ago. but COVID, it's 100 copies pressing this record, so it was not the highest priority at the record pressing plant. But it's coming out in a month, about a month, exactly a month, and it's only 100 copies. And the guy has done quite a few movie soundtracks. It's psychedelic rock, electronics, industrial, ambient, modern classical. It's just a big mishmash of things, but with real musicians that like really enjoy playing. It's a little bit, sometimes it's a little bit jammy, and sometimes it's extremely well composed. And a pretty cool cover, by the way. Like the guy who,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. How did you figure out the name when I see this hieroglyphs?
Well, I looked up on Discogs, and like you figure it out. But this is his I think under he had like an alias called Frigiol, I think, who which was like decent club music, a little bit on the post club side of things. I mean, club music that wouldn't work on the big dance floor, but that was interesting, a little more musical. And now he's I guess also because of COVID, like you embrace what you really want to do without the constraint of the functionality of the music. This is the music he wants to do. And why is this release only in 100 copy? That Macadam Mambo is the kind of label that sometimes does that for reasons that sometimes are like conservative, like no one knows this, I don't know how it's gonna go, and sometimes also because I wouldn't say they're elitist, but they playful with that. They kind of like the idea of collectability and the guy who runs it, I know him. I know he loves going and looking for rare stuff in attics and cellars and finding the records that no one knows, and so he likes to create these records. Sometimes, if he does that for this record, that means that at a later time, if he will release another record by this guy wider, and then maybe again he'll do like a 7-inch or a 10-inch. There's a culture of how you release records that is not just about the business sometimes, but also about marketing, in the sense that this is good for his image, but it's also fun. It's fun. He can afford it, and he likes it. The idea of like it's not a small club, so because the music will be available digitally as well, obviously. But yeah, it's these kinds of releases that are like when you get it, maybe it won't be collectible now, but 100 copies. The music is good. Eventually, people will catch on, and also the fact that the audience for this kind of music there's not really a scene. It's very spread out. There's not necessarily a tight community that talks about all these releases like we're doing now, which might change things, but so there's not really that much word of mouth for that music. It's mostly people in their own corner, and like not necessarily the most communicative people.
Yeah, the collectability aspect, of course, in this area of music is quite big. That's totally a factor. Totally agree.
Yeah, it's really fun. The next artist is an artist that has a lot of album on an indie label that is a quite major indie label. So that name for me is a big name, in my opinion. I know it's not, but like it's a band that has been allowed to develop for over 15 years now. So it's Bitchin Bajas, Bitchin Bajas. It's their new album on Drag City. Drag City is the label of what's his name, Will Oldham, and they actually did a split album with him singing on their records. This is their first album in 5 years. What they do is kind of psychedelic rock, instrumental. Sometimes there's some kind of tribal singing or whatever. It is. I would say that it is kind of very close in spirit to Don Cherry, Terry Riley, and it's mostly done with electronic means, synthesizers, not keyboards, like real analog modular synthesizers. There's also instruments like acoustic instruments on some recordings, less on some others, and I think I got every single record of theirs, and it had been a while. I was wondering, have they moved on to another project? I didn't know, and now this just came out of nowhere.
Sometimes you just need a break, Stunty.
Yeah, exactly. This was their previous album that was absolutely fantastic. But this music, you're correct. I needed a break because, like, this came out 5 years ago, and it took me at least 2 years to digest because their records are so deep and so intense and so rich.
Gorgeous cover, by the way.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, which is actually, if you know Don Cherry's wife, Moki Cherry, was doing tapestry work for a lot of his records in the 70s. So this is a direct reference to Don Cherry, the way they do this, like hippie, psychedelic, covers. And the new one is more like fractal images, but it is very psychedelic music. Like, as you can see, both on this cover and the one that was put on screen, like, it doesn't get more psychedelic than this. And it's not psychedelic rock per se, like the traditional. It is like the current version of that, like the most relevant current version of that. Next, what did we have? We had Pink Cortices Siphone. This is Richard Chartier. Richard Chartier has done tons of records over the years. I think he's from New York, and he's done recently. He did quite a few records with William Basinski, who is a big name in avant-garde music. Richard Chartier is a big name as well. William Basinski is a star. Richard Chartier has done a lot of great mastering and engineering for other bands. He's one of the true best guys when it comes to electronic music production. And this is in my opinion, his most melodic and most joyful project. This is a compilation of 2 mini albums that only came out as cassettes over the past 15 years. And it's great. It's really fantastic ambient. That is not just ambient. There's lots of stuff happening. I say ambient because it is not noisy. It is not like it is quite calm music, but it's very
probably some field recordings involved, huh? When I hear the name Basinski, I always think field recordings too.
Yeah, but he's not really doing field recordings. He's more really about really finding sounds that are so beautiful that just the exploration of the sound feels like a narrative, an adventure. That, of course, there are melodies, but they are kind of discrete. It's like stuff happening without you noticing, and then you notice it, and then you notice the pattern, and like, oh, this is beautiful, and there's a structure, and it's actually a composition. But it is more avant-garde, but it is welcoming. It is not music that is difficult to listen when you get past the aesthetic of it. If you have an issue with that, I have no issue with that, and most shouldn't have. Like, we've had electronic music for like 30 years in pop music. We have 40 years with Jean-Michel Jarre, but this is really something special, and this is limited to 300 copies. This is on a really good American label called Helen Scarsdale, if I remember correctly, that put out a lot of great records, including one by Tom Reschion, who we've talked about recently, who was part of the Los Angeles Free Music Society. And
Liam, Stunty did all the work for this list, and he got into those recordings, into those pre-order titles, and that's why he explains them, talks about them, and I'm just giving every now and then my 2 cents. This is completely as intended.
Exactly. But like Michael, of course, like we talked about the selection before, it's not just me. Like, we know both, we know each other, we know we are quite in sync with what is presented here.
In most
Sometimes
cases,
Michael will have
yeah,
more input in the selection, sometimes
yeah.
less. And I guess maybe I have more time to do the selection also.
I don't know. I wouldn't go that far.
Maybe not, yeah. Next record is the big name of this, or one of the big names of this selection. And it's a reissue of a record that is very unique in the discography of that guy. A lot of people have been looking for this record, waiting for this to be widely available, even if they haven't heard it. So they don't know how different it is from his usual discography. This is Blemish from David Sylvian. David Sylvian used to be the singer of this band, Japan, like a very well-known band for new wave. This is my favorite records of their Gentleman Takes Polaroids. He later
you have
had
the original, or do you have the half-speed master? Let me guess, you have the original.
Yeah, Michael and I, we met while you were really into the whole, starting really into getting all these reissues, and I don't need this because I have the originals. Like I have like here, and like I got something like 15,000 records, and I got all these records when there was no reissues. So it's not because I'm a snob; there was just no other way.
No need for it.
Yeah.
This release, I think, really is a total highlight, especially if you consider the price for an, let's call it original. I think there's only one pressing right now.
Yeah,
this is the second pressing. They are around 400 euros. They pay around 400 euros. It's so rare.
They pressed this. This was released originally in 2004. This is a very special record in his discography. David Sylvian is a little bit like I would say he's similar to Mark Hollis, but more in tune with the avant-garde. His records might be, for the most part, very lush pop music. You could say that they are kind of.
One thing, you are talking just right now about the singer from Talk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you, Michael. So it is. You could say that he's kind of in between Talk, the Cocteau Twins, but also Ryoichi Sakamoto, which he collaborated many times with. He also did records with John Hassel, with Holger Shukai from Cannes, and so he always had kind of like underground or avant-garde pop figures working with him, because that's what he's interested in. And I guess he used his fame and pop career to highlight and give opportunities to these people, to these musicians. Blemish is probably the record where he goes the deepest into the avant-garde side of things. You have many tracks on the record that are co-written by Derek Bailey, the craziest guitar player in avant-garde free improv. You have at least one track produced by Christian Fennes, one of the great electronic music musicians of the past 20 years from Austria, who did that album called Endless Summer, that is a huge homage both to the Beach Boys and to My Bloody Valentine. And this record, was originally released as a CD, and they did a vanity press in 2004 of this on vinyl, 500 copies. The new pressing of this, that has many people have waited for to happen because of the price you indicated, is not going to be a huge pressing. It's going to be a little more than that, but not. It's not going to be like 5,000 copies.
You don't think so? Okay.
No.
But when we talk about this release, this is up to the 21st of October, I think.
Yeah, and
it got postponed. 1 second, and this Friday, another David Sylvian, also much sought after, this Monophone of him. When you compare those both albums, both are get those, or would you say the Blemish is a bit more important, or a bit more into my alley?
Honestly, the Blemish, if you're into the collector thing, Blemish is the one to go.
Okay.
But honestly, just check for yourself a few tracks. It's a little more avant-garde, but it's very there's lots of contrast. There will be like he's singing on it, and his voice is he's still his voice. He's got a great singing voice for pop music, like very Mark Hawley's talk later talk kind of like almost storytelling, even if there are melodies. No, I would really definitely say that this is the one to go. Both are good, interesting, and great pop records, but this one is unique in many ways. And just if you guys get it and have it at home and take the time to enjoy it, this is a multi-layered record that will be rewarding in at a different pace. You will get instant reward, but you will discover new things, and it's also a pathway to a lot of other stuff, which is, I think, really the kind of mission that David Sylvian has been giving himself. Like, what is my role in music history? Like, he knows that however we like, and I love old Japan, this is still silly new wave pop for the radio, and he has greater aspirations. But I think that he's the kind of guy who was probably into the avant-garde before doing the pop. The pop is what got him his career. So he has this legacy, but he's I hope you understand what I'm.
Yeah, you can pre-order that one on Amazon. You're right, Boxen. That's true. You get that on Amazon too.
Yeah, and I think it's also being reissued on CD and like everything. But this is the kind of reissue. However many they do, be it like 1,200, 1,500, 2,000, 400, 4,000, it won't be enough.
Yeah.
For this record, it won't be enough. But I know for a fact that it's. They didn't do 2,000 of this.
Really? Oh my God. Okay. Then I will order it on several places because I want to get sure to get one.
Yeah. Next one is someone that has a career kind of parallel to David Sylvian in a way. Someone who started a little before.
Does David Sylvian do porn movies?
Well, he did records with people who did the soundtracks to porn movies.
Okay.
To avant-garde porn movies, but yeah. So the next record is Cozy Fanni Tutti from Chris and Cozy, Throbbing Gristle, and many different projects. But this is a very special record. So Cozy Fanni Tutti is an electronic musician, post-punk, industrial, avant-garde, a voice also. She's also a singer and an important figure in British music history throughout the 80s, late 70s, 80s, 90s, into this day. And this one is called Delia, Derbyshire. This is the soundtrack she did for a movie about Delia Derbyshire, who is considered by many as the earliest British female electronic music composer. She created the theme for the Doctor Who TV show soundtrack that is beloved by most British people. And
Cozy Fanni Tutti did the theme for Doctor Who?
No, Delia Derbyshire.
Okay, sorry.
And so Cozy Fanni Tutti had access to archives of Delia Derbyshire. Delia died in the 90s, I believe. And I'm obsessed with Delia Derbyshire. I've been collecting records of her since the late 90s. She did some library soundtrack records like music for screen and stage. And I was collecting every single like 30-second clip she did back then. She's a really important figure, and that was like a big inspiration also for bands like the Spacemen Free, Spiritualized, and that reference her a lot. And this is the big piece about her, the documentary that is like a high-end production. And she did the soundtrack to that. There's no track that I have filtered yet about it, from it, but knowing the love she has for Delia Derbyshire, the respect, and the fact that Cosi Fanni Tutti is a great musician.
Was
All her
she
records.
on Psychic TV? Can you answer the question?
No,
Was she also?
no. She was Throbbing Gristle, and then Chris and Cosi with Chris Carter. This is my favorite albums of theirs. I got lots of her stuff. And this is one of the few records. You know what? I often say that like I never buy records anymore without listening to them. This is one record I would buy blindly if there was no way to listen to it beforehand. I actually pre-ordered it somewhere, and because I know at worst case scenario it will be really interesting, but I'm sure it will be good. And yeah, this is coming out on Conspiracy International CTI, so this is their own label, her own label with Chris Carter. So it's a totally independent label. It's not, it's not even financed by Mute Records. So this is not going to be a big pressing. And it's coming out, I think in 3 weeks or so, 2 or 3 weeks. And yeah.
Didn't know about that one.
Next one is something that I use as, it's a great record, but I use it as an example to talk about like what kind of record exists that are desirable and how they can be frustrating. This is we're going to talk about a record by Iannis Xenakis. Iannis Xenakis is arguably the one of the 2-3 biggest composers of the 20th century, the like most influential. And a lot of his work is unreleased on vinyl. I showed, by the way, a box set of from the 70s, I think, of most of his electronic music work. But there's, for the celebration of his 100th year, the German label Carla Records put out a box set of 5 LPs of some of all the electronic work he has done. Some of it doesn't even sound electronic. It just sounds like massive and impressive and epic. And out of the 5 LPs, most of it had already been issued on vinyl on this compilation, on this collaborative album, on that album, but a long time ago. And 2 of the records had never been issued on vinyl. And they were supposed to come out on individually because the box set was quite expensive, and they didn't. And now, because of the pressure, I was really angry because I knew that there were some copies of this that was supposed to come out, and they were all sold privately. And there was a lot of anger with the label because of that. So he managed to do a micro extra pressing of the 2-3 records that were in the box that were unreleased and that are coming out now. And this will, I don't know if this would disappear very quickly, but if people who know and like him, which should be everyone, realize the mechanics of why this record exists and how it's distributed, it should disappear instantly. Yeah. And it probably won't, but me telling you like that it might not be urgent to get this, but in my world it is. Like I was dead afraid when it was up for pre-order that like I had to snag it because I don't know how many extra copies they did. And I know it's not many, but I know it's not even if he's one of the biggest names in avant-garde modern classical music. There's not that many people who talk about that kind of stuff in a welcoming way. It's quite elitist. For me, like I put it on the same level as the Beatles and Depeche Mode. I like it as much, not more, not less. It's all good. So I wanted to talk about it because this record is surprisingly up for pre-orders, and it's a fantastic record. Like I
can see in your face that you can't wait to get it.
Oh yeah. I'm. The next one is.
Wait a second, Stunty. Here's a question for you from
absolutely.
me. What do you think about the early work of Vangelis?
Vangelis, I like some of his stuff, early and later stuff. What I tend to prefer from him is when he does electronic music rather than synthesizer music. Quickly for those the few, hopefully, who don't understand the distinction, electronic music is synthesis. It is analog. It is more analog than most acoustic instrument, if you think about it, as it's pure waveforms, sound waves. And he did some records in the 80s that used synthesizers that had not oscillators in it, which meant that the electronic sounds were not created but were already pre-recorded. So it was basically a keyboard with pre-recorded sounds. And these, I always like the texture of it, like the life in the sound is not the same. It's less. The melodies, the arrangement can be great, and there's a band that we both love, Michael, Alvanotto, who owes a lot to Vangelis. Like, especially in his Xerex series, you can hear that this is like a modern take on the Vangelis, on the Blade Runner soundtrack. There are atmospheres and harmonies that are lifted almost directly from that. And this is so joyful, like when you listen to this, it's joyful, but it's also like harrowing. It is like you really are put on an icy, very thin layer of ground, and you feel like, oh,
okay,
it
nice
feels,
description.
yeah, because some of his music, sometimes of Vangelis, doesn't have the feel of danger. And a lot of what I like with music, even when it's nice and lush music, is when there is a feel of danger in a way. Like, it's an abstract idea, but like, we're talking about music. We're talking about the most abstract thing. We're putting words to that, and hopefully we're doing an okay job. And well, Liam asked, so here we go. The next one is something I was a little bit surprised you didn't know. This is Markov.
I know them all, Stunty.
Markov is an artist from Mexico. Yeah, he's had his start in the Mexican scene of raves and free parties, but his first records that I was aware of were in the late 90s. When he started the Markov alias on a San Francisco label called Context, which I believe was run by Sutek, who is now more known under Rose name. And he's a transvestite artist who, very interesting guy, very interesting approach of electronic music and avant-garde modern classical. This is the first Markov album from, I believe, 2002, because this is the 20-year anniversary reissue with an extra LP of bonus material. This is the original that came out in 2002. It's a very special record because he did something that, like, it was about to happen. There were people like me and other who in clubs who were mixing this minimal techno, very stripped down, very glitch stuff, and mixing it with neoclassical music, ECM records. And that's exactly what he did. He recorded it before anyone had the idea to make it as a style. And this is very sophisticated, velvetish, modern classical music, but it's actually also club music. It's like there are beats, like rhythms of very refined, very well thought and beautiful percussions. So there's a groove to it, but there's also very much space and ambience, and you really you get the feeling like of a widescreen, like the cover, widescreen music, a little bit like the movie. What was the name of that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio with the bear? That was actually soundtracked by Alvanotto and Ryoshi Sakamoto.
Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yeah, it's someone.
It wasn't Titanic. Can you tell you
no,
that?
no.
I'm not so much into Leonardo DiCaprio. So
I hope you get the feeling with the description. It is so. This is Martes, and
thank you.
it's
The Revenant. Okay, thank you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, which was soundtrack by Ryoshi Sakamoto, Alvanoto, and Bryce something, who's a soundtrack guy, who's interesting. So this record, like, this is very much a record of its time. But I recently listened back to it because of this, and like, wow, this is still so unique and so cool. And you get a great package of. This is not necessarily a record that will be very rare or limited, apart from the fact that this is being reissued on the original label, Leaf Records, and some of these records tend to be expensive. The original is still worth around like 40. 50 euros on the second-hand market, when this was like an $18 record when it came out. It is his best record. Everything after that was like the same but not as good. So, or something else, but that wasn't really fully accomplished. But yeah, this is a record I think I'm pretty confident most people would get a kick out of, even if they know nothing about that kind of music. The next one is quite similar in many ways, as it is Susumu Yokota.
Brilliant.
This is not this one. This is the latest one, which you showed on your channel as well. This is gonna be the first issue on vinyl of a record that came out on CD originally. Susumu Yokota passed away when he was very young. He was quite prolific, but he released quite a few records on Leaf Records. And these records are worth a fortune, often like 200 euros. Even when they get reissued, the reissues are worth a shitload of money. This is on a much smaller label from Spain called Obscure Records. And this is supposed to be one of his best records. I've heard a few tracks of it. I don't have it because it only came out on CD. And I have some CDs, but it came out at the time when I wasn't buying CDs anymore. And well,
you know, I look for this stuff too, and I really have to say, Stunty, that you found, for example, this edition. This is unbelievable. I would never ever have found it, and the record you showed a second before, the other one from him, is such a great record. If it is close to this one, this will be a brilliant record.
Yeah. This record I saw on the Bandcamp, because I'm subscribed to the Bandcamp page of the label. They've communicated a lot because they really, that's their biggest release, and they've sold out already on the label. So it will be in the shops, you can find it, but you can't buy it from them anymore. So it's, I suspect it will be a somewhat big record. I think you also showed the Mount Fuji record of his. And I remember when this was exactly the same case. Originally,
I think it's Acid Mount Fuji, right?
Acid Mount Fuji. And they had to repress that 2 times because the demand was so high, and it was going up in price instantly. So this one might be the case as well. Next one is something that is so dear to both of us. For me, it's like one of the... Next one is Muslimgaus. Muslimgaus, I did a video about him that was quite spontaneous. It was not like it was a reaction to what was happening in the world when it happened. Oh no, yeah, sorry about that. It's not Muslimgaus. It's first.
Next,
you keep it up, Rachel. This is Christina Vonsu with Michael Harrison and John Bennett. This is basically a Michael Harrison record. Michael Harrison used to be the guy who tuned the piano for La Monte Young in the 80s. La Monte Young is the inventor and the big daddy of minimalism, like Terry Riley, Steve Reich, Philip Glass. He invented it all, and they were all his disciples. But he was kind of a guru, and he had his followers. And Michael Harrison was a very good composer. who did one album in the 80s that was kind of new agey, a bit too new agey, to be honest. A couple of years ago, he released this album, which is the first album of his music that is that kind of stuff, like minimalism. And this is choir music that was recorded in a water tank, a reserve, like with the greatest reverb, natural reverb. It's a fantastic record. But this one that is coming out was basically made possible by Christina Vansu, who's a very good avant-garde modern classical composer of current. And
okay. So now we might have a problem. Rachel. Come on
hey,
up, Rachel.
Everybody. How are you, Michael? So we lost Stunty temporarily.
Damn it.
He'll come back. He's on his phone right now. So.
Yeah. So, Rachel, what do you think so far? You like it?
Well, yeah. The great advantage I have is Stunt Rock Confusion sent over to my channel a whole bunch of these titles because I'm handling the graphics end. So I now know and have in my email all of these albums so I can check them out at my leisure. Now, the only problem is that they're in short production, so there's not a whole lot of them available. The ones that are available, well worth checking out. Some of them, I'm reading some of the comments. Some people say this isn't what I'm into. It's not my kind of music. But when you get recommendations on this level, that doesn't
come as a surprise, Rachel. We talked a bit about before. That is not a surprise. These videos are not intended to, how shall I put it, to break new view records.
Like the wide. I was muted. I apologize, everybody. I have my microphone off because I shut down when I'm behind scenes.
No, you're not muted. You're not muted.
Okay.
And so that is not a surprise. But what always is a surprise to me, how much does this guy knows about these things?
Yeah, he's a walking encyclopedia. There's nothing phony about him. You get the real deal with Stunt Rock Confusion. Very knowledgeable. And as you did in the preamble leading up in the introduction to Stunt Rock Confusion, he's well-versed. He's a performer. He's worked in the industry. He's an interviewer. He's done interviews with different people. So it's just absolutely, like I say, walking encyclopedia on so many levels, Michael. And we're fortunate to have him as a member of the
and I really recommend everybody, what he does the upcoming Friday and get more into this stuff. He plays, when he does his videos, for those who are not at his channel, he puts up those records and he plays them and he explains it, and it's so interesting, and I think we might have him back.
I'll get out of here, guys. Keep going. Stunty, the next one I got, just so for continuity's sake, just so you know what I've got queued up, I've got Tomaga. Would that be right for coming up next after you finish this discussion?
Yeah. I just wanted to quickly say sorry about it's my cable that there was some
those things happen. We are not on CNN or Fox News here, so it's not a problem.
This record, that you just showed, the Christina Vansu, Michael Harrison, is apparently what I heard from it, the closest to what really he was the most passionate about. And this is the first recording of his music, of that kind of music that is being released ever. It's on a good label, but not a big label. It's the kind of stuff you remember I recommended you that La Montaillon box set.
Yes.
That is a fantastic music and object. I believe that this will be the same thing. This is one of these records that is going to be historically relevant, a really beautiful object, and the music it's modern classical music. It's not it's avant-garde, but it's not experimental. It is modern classical, but in a way that is not dusty at all. It is just so exciting to the ears what they do. And I heard one track of it. They didn't let anything else before the release, and it was this is interesting. And then 2 days later, I still had it in my head, and I was like, shit, yeah. And I wanted to hear more. And no, it's enough. I'm pre-ordering this. This is absolutely
I
something.
give up. I give up. I order.
Yeah, it's, sometimes you put your face into something, into some music, and this is this kind of record for me. And there's not that many records like that that have that feeling that there's something that is almost metaphysical about it. Like I want to give myself a chance to absorb that. And this is not a record that will be widely available or available for a long time. I believe I would be shocked if this record wouldn't either quickly or within a couple of years become like a cult record. So the next one is indeed Tomaga, which is a British duo who does like folk, psychedelic music, jazz, free jazz, ambient soundtracks. They've been at it for quite some time. This is the first vinyl issue of that record that came out as 2 cassettes, I believe, or 2 CDs. And I knew very little about them. I knew they existed. I had heard some of their stuff. Some of their stuff has been released on vinyl before. And I thought, this is good, but it's all right. I don't need to have everything. This one, I thought, wow, this is on another level. This is something I need to have, and I looked it up. And the people who are into their stuff, I looked on Discogs. These are records that have a very strong and dedicated fan base. So these records are instantly expensive and sold out. And
Really?
I have not much to say about that, because this is exactly the kind of record normally I would wait to get it, to play it on my channel and to talk about it and to convey. Now, because of this guy, you can take the chance with me, but like I could I managed to find links to listen to all the tracks, and wow, this is a really, really good record of the kind of stuff. The way you describe it loosely as abstract, but for me, I think this record is very catchy. It's also a little bit of crowd rock and Canterbury and broadcast stuff like broadcast. The first record we talked about, I forgot to say that, like the Aylen Hawley, there's a strong broadcast aspect to her music that is really, really cool as well. But this record, I think, is coming. Yeah, it's been announced quite a while ago. I think I pre-ordered that back in April or maybe in March. So it's one of these records that is on a super small label. They probably will do like 300 to 500 copies, but like they were very down the line, the queue of pressing it. But I know that where I pre-ordered it, it's already sold out. So we'll see. And we finally get to Muslimgaus.
Here we go.
Yeah. So Muslimgaus quickly is this guy from Manchester. He started in the early 80s and was into industrial music. That's what he was doing, but very influenced by the music of the Middle East. He had so much so that he immersed himself in that world. A lot of his records were recorded at the Great Mosque of Manchester. He traveled also to several countries to meet the best musicians, the best percussionists of like classical Middle East music, and recorded with them. His music can be quite dark sometimes. Sometimes it's very abrasive, like with distorted drums, which can be interesting, but which I tend to, it's not really my thing. A lot of it is also towards dub. He died in 1999, and since he's died, I think there's probably like 120 albums of him that has been reissued. He was.
But Sandy, one question, please, because you know that stuff better than me. But I think most of them, the original source, in a way, has been on cassette, audio cassettes, right?
Yeah.
That was a medium he puts out his stuff.
He put out on vinyl it was pretty funny. In the 90s, there was through Stahlplatt, one of his two main labels, a subscription which I subscribed to. You would send them, I think it was 50 quid I sent them, and there were some limited editions that basically you exhausted your credit. They were sending you everything he did, and you wouldn't know what format. And sometimes it could be frustrating, because I got like a DAT cassette, a DAT cassette, a mini disc. He did everything.
Okay.
Fortunately, I had all these formats, but since he passed, there's been a cult following around him that is crazy. And a lot of the stuff that was only released on CD is now being issued on vinyl. Yeah. One of my favorites was issued a few years ago, Mullah Said.
Yes.
And that one was originally released in 1998, 800 copies on CD. And this is a record that is worth over 100 euros now, the vinyl reissue. There's 3 pressings of that.
Quite some of his releases are really, really expensive.
Yeah. I mean, when they come out, it's a normal price. It's a double LP, very, very nice package, numbered. And
this is a Stahlplatt release, right? This is from Stahlplatt. I think.
This is Stahlplatt. The thing is that this is the kind of stuff he did that I love the most, which is more ambient, tribal, very atmospheric. There's a bunch of reissues that comes out of him every year. This year there's already been 4. None of them yet have been the ones I like. But now there's 2 that come out.
Finally, because we always talk, do you get the new Muslimgaus? You always say, no, I'm not interested, or I have it already.
Yeah. Well, Muslimgaus, I have about like 20 records of him on vinyl. There's much more. I have every one I need. There's a lot that I don't need because I don't like them. But when I like them, it's the best. It's absolutely the best. And the first one, the one that Rachel showed, is a compilation of various compilation tracks from the mid-90s that are quite similar to the stuff I just showed. Maybe a little more, a little different than Mullah Said, but very close. And it's such a clever issue, because it's a record that didn't exist. It's a compilation of compilation tracks, and with 2 unreleased versions that are better than the originals. So I'm very much
on which of his labels, Stunty, the first one, the compilation?
That one is on Contact Audio.
Okay.
Which is, I believe, a subsidiary label to this label that is putting out those core reissues.
Relapse? No, not Relapse.
No. But everything will be in the list. The second one that Rachel can put on screen now, Veiled Sisters. It's also by Muslimgaus. It's a double LP, a triple LP. Yeah. And it's a reissue of one of the 2 best Muslimgaus records in my book. That came out on CD only in the early 90s, if I remember correctly. I think 94, maybe. And this is one I have on Discogs, a list I made called Records I Wish Existed on Vinyl. And this was the number 1 on this.
Okay.
And
so
this
will be a party time for you, this one.
Yeah.
And you get the black one. By the way, I made a mistake. I've read, colored vinyl. I thought, okay, get the colored one. What I didn't read is that it's on gold vinyl, and gold vinyl is really risky. So ooh.
Maybe it will be good, but like, why take the risk?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. So again, not on Stahlplatt, by the way, which makes me a bit nervous, because the Stahlplatt releases are quite decent.
It's released on Alter, which is a British label that is good. It's a very, very good label. Basically, the Muslimgaus discography rights is being handled by both Stahlplatt and Soleil Moon. Soleil Moon is the American counterpart of Stahlplatt. And basically, when a label wants to reissue something, other Stahlplatte or Soleil Moon already had planned to reissue it themselves, and it's no, or you have to show that you're good enough. I know some labels who wanted and who were denied, and some who were allowed to do that. And the way they did it is they had already a catalog of stuff that was considered as legit by the Stahlplatte guys. And yeah, Alter, I don't remember. I have a few records on that label, but it's a really good label. Very good. And yeah, now two records also on two records on the same label. The first is Luc Ferrari. We're almost at the end, by the way.
Okay, you go. I have to open.
So now it's Luc Ferrari on Transversal Disks. Transversal Disks is a label from Paris by a guy who does fantastic music, electronic music in the tradition of Vangelis, actually, under the name Jonathan Fitoussi. He works at the French National Radio, and he handles the archives. Basically, he's a sound engineer whose work is to do the transfers from the tapes, the archives of the French National Radio, when they need to be reissued or preserved. So he got that job because that got him access to a library of recording that is exceptional, both in avant-garde music and in jazz, chanson, film music, etc. This record by Luc Ferrari is also a powerhouse of avant-garde music from the 50s up to till his death in 1999, I believe, or 2001, some around that time, I think. And these are fully unreleased recordings of his that were just, I believe, broadcasted on the commissioned by the French National Radio, and broadcasted that way for a specific program. And I know the care that this label puts in this. They I got many records of theirs, and they are so good, and the liner notes are so good. They really get you inside it. Here's a record of theirs from a couple of years ago, the François Bell, with this kind of OB, lots of descriptions. There's always really nice pictures, and this is an archival recording, and this is exactly what that Luc Ferrari is. Luc Ferrari he invented a style called Hörspiel, which is almost like theater for the ear. Lots of people followed him on that, and this is music that is quite playful. There's something fun about it when you get into it, because it really uses plays with the frequencies and the aesthetics of someone's voice. The voice is central in a lot of his music. Luc Ferrari, yeah. And the next one is something that you are familiar with, on the same label, but completely different, is the Ahmad Jamal trio, on also Transversal. Yeah, I'm thirsty right now. It's
this series, and I think it's fair to call this one with the jazz releases a series. Yeah. It's a stunning series with stunning artists and in a great quality. For those of you, it's really, really great stuff.
Last year they did an Archie Shepp recording from 74 or 76. That is going to be in my top of 2021. And it's not just that he got access to this, it's that he curates it. It's great recordings. To be honest, I'm not a great Ahmad Jamal fan. I like some of it. I actually have a couple of records of his. I listened to this. This is fantastic. Really, really good. The bass player, I don't remember his name, but the bass is so good. There's a real good contrast between
and this release Vibrasonic is talking about is also a killer release from that.
Yeah. Killer, absolutely. Yeah. And this one is of the same standard as all the jazz recordings that have been issued. And these are absolutely exclusive. And they're also a testimony of the cultural life of Paris and France from the 70s. And Jonathan is doing an incredible
Give me 1 sense. I have to reply to this because
yeah.
I think you can't compare that. I think this is completely different than the Kasim Gruntman Fremmer.
Yeah. Everything has its purpose, and I greatly enjoyed that stream myself. I would have loved to chat with him about stuff, even if he's not interested himself in that music. I'm sure that this is interesting. This could be interesting to him on another level, and we could have interesting discussions about that. Interestingly enough, the guy who does that label, Jonathan Fitoussi, has also done a few records with Benoît Dunkel from Air. He's basically the go-to guy when it comes to technique and synthesizer for Air. So this is the kind of guy who is behind that, who has really, lots of street cred in my book. And lastly, a record that is, so far, from what I heard, a contender for my favorite record of the year so far, the Roméo Poirier. This is Roméo Poirier's second album coming out, I think, in a month or so. It's been on pre-order for a couple of months. His first album from 2 years ago came out of nowhere and was really good. For me, it was just a little bit too derivative of another artist I love dearly, which is John Hassell. And it was like kind of a modern John Hassell, like what John Hassell hasn't managed to do with his last records before he passed, incorporating more electronics. John Hassell did a fantastic record with Brian Eno, or basically Brian Eno put his name on the John Hassell record in the early 80s. That is probably the best ambient record ever. It's because it's so much more than ambient. It's what they call fourth world music, which is inspired by spirituality outside of the Western world and transcribed through different kinds of instruments, but mostly through the trumpet of John Hassell and delays, echo, reverb. And
when we are right at it, Stunty, I think we also can both recommend the Hassell stuff he did for ECM.
Yeah.
On the ECM label. Also
but that record is expensive.
Let's hope for a reissue. Let's hope.
I
think that might happen.
Yeah, it's one of his best records. Like his second record and his next. Like he throughout his life he made great records. There was no stop. There were some stinkers, but very few. But this record by Roméo Poirier, compared to the first one that was really good, is a huge improvement. This one is really the same, but making it his own. He managed, after the first one that was fantastic aesthetically, it's the same aesthetics of like John Hassell, very lush wind instruments, but with something extra, something really of his own. And this is coming out not on the same label as the first one, but on Fetish, which is Jan Jelinek's label.
Yeah, that's Jelinek, right?
Yeah. Who's also one of the. He's a
he has done great stuff. He has really done. Maybe we go into him a bit because he's also releasing quite some stuff over the years, and we probably will get into Jelinek.
Yeah, absolutely. But this record, like the Living Room, I can't wait to get it. Fetish is it's not super limited, but it is like it's gonna be like 300 or 500 copies of it, and if we our little community really open ourselves to this kind of music, 500 copies is nothing in reality.
No, it's nothing. That's true.
And it's also that, like, really now we're talking about all these tracks through the filter of us, true people only. It's only us two, and there's even if these records are widely recognized for the most part as this is great stuff by the people who know about it. Like, how do you, like, most people don't listen to stuff they don't know. Even the journalists, there are a lot of conservative in that way. So it takes a while before these records, however great they are, they reach the level of exposure, even for the professionals that they deserve. And
but there's another problem. There's another problem. That's why it is so great what you do. But also in this kind of, let's call it genre, although this is of course not the correct term, but also in this area of music, let's be honest, there's also titles you really do not need.
Oh yeah.
And to have a curator like you do, this is invaluable, that you can be a very experienced and knowledgeable filter, so that we don't have to go through this and I can tell you, Stunty for this video has gone through hundreds of releases, through hundreds, and really I can't thank you enough that you've done that, and especially share that what your experience is, and put out, let's say, the gems in a way. Of course, always through your looking glass. Of course, what can you do?
Yeah, exactly.
But still,
the only credibility I have is for you to decide what. Like you say that I listen to through hundreds for this, which I do every week. Even for myself, there were times when I did it for professional reasons, and times when there were less professional reasons. There's always been professional reasons, let's be honest, or semi-professional. But for this, I did a little more than usual because I went through pre-orders deeper than I usually do. Usually, because I order records all the time, and I try to be on the pulse. But it's not just going through 300 records for the next 2 months. It's doing that every week, so you have something to compare with. It's if you could go at this music for the first time, our friend Davis, for example, Fred Perlman, who 2 years ago he knew nothing about that kind of music. Now he knows quite a lot. But at first he was getting records, and sometimes were great, and sometimes I was telling him, yeah, it's good, but like I wouldn't get this. And that means that just when you get a bigger picture of it all, you see that this, of course, it's my taste, but I try to look beyond that.
This is the word of the evening. It seemed easier when we were kids. You are so right. That's so
you know
true.
what? That's something. You know what? This is a very good comment, because this goes back to one thing that is very bizarre. Most of people love music when they're kids and teenagers, and when you reach a certain age, when it should be easier because you have more money, etc., a lot of us lose interest in music. Not totally in music, but in music in the truer sense, like music is now and tomorrow, and they start to only listen back to the stuff that they liked when they were 15, 20, and look for more stuff like that. How is it that some people still get this energy and this drive to always keep looking for stuff that is new to them, that is challenging in a positive way, not challenging because you want to hurt yourself, but like you want to progress, to have what is it? I don't know if it's practice, if how you're wired, if some people have more curiosity than others. I don't know. I wouldn't say I have the.
Stunty, the point is, of what's always very, very important to me, that you don't get an elitist touch.
Yeah.
I think it's if you're into Nazareth and Slade and Beach Boys and Bay City Rollers, it's completely okay, and it's not, oh no, I listen to Cosi Fanni Tutti, FX Twin and Throbbing Gristle. It's the same. You have to love it, you have to feel it, you have to get into it. That's very important in my opinion. It's not an elitist thing, but what's in general in life is very important in my opinion. Stay open, have an open mind, try something new.
Exactly.
It keeps you young. It doesn't matter how old you are. Stay open, get into it. If you don't like it, of course, no problem.
Exactly. Yeah. And you guys, by the way, if you feel that sometimes we fall into a trap of being elitist, please tell us, because that is really the opposite of what we want to do here. I started to do YouTube videos because I thought that I can talk about that music in a way that is welcoming, because that's how I am and what I want to do. Maybe sometimes you you make mistakes, but
Of course.
trust me that like there are stuff that I love that I didn't talk about today, because I feel that this is too much me, too much. This could be hard, and I wouldn't talk about that the same way. But like, this is stuff that I think none of the stuff that we talked about today, I think, is challenging to the point that it's being like, ooh.
It's not Jap noise what you put.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one last thing
but
about
that's an important point. Once more, please do yourself a favor. Subscribe to Stunty's channel. The upcoming Friday, you will get into it and you will put on music from the things you've shown. And of course, it's a live stream. You answer questions, you communicate. I know a lot of us probably knows it. Do yourself a favor and try it out. Stunty does it great. He has a great setup there. He puts on the records. He talks with you. Great stuff. And you, especially on this Friday, you will put up stuff we showed today.
Yeah. The sound is not great, unfortunately, yet. I don't have yet the means to plug the sound source directly from the internet and talk at the same time. But take it for what it is. It's something to help you to get into it. And one last thing about all that is for the people who are concerned about like these records we talked about, how good are the pressings? These are not like the big audiophile labels that we are used to and that we trust. I would say that, like, even with the big audiophile labels, the reason why there are all these videos is because people talk about which ones are good and which ones aren't, which means that even in these labels, sometimes it's not to the level that you wish it was. This is the same here. And Michael buys these records as well, so he can confirm to me. Sometimes some of these records will also be a little bit disappointing in the pressing or the mastering or whatever. But in my experience, like, it is not at a ratio that is much higher or even higher at all than any label that makes their main objective to put out great sound quality beyond the music curating. This music, you are guaranteed to have something more of your own, something that is not already agreed by everyone. Because sure, okay, why listen to the Who, the Beatles and all that? You love them, but also you want to belong. Like, there's nothing scary about it. There's like, no one is gonna point the finger at you and like, ha, you have bad taste. With all this music, sure, you take a little bit of a risk if that is a concern of you, consciously or unconsciously. But at least you're doing yourself a favor. You're trying something out, and we hopefully.
You know what's so beautiful? Sorry to interrupt you, but the beautiful thing is we will do this again, and we will do this in 14 days, and then we will do it again, and again, and over time we get where we want. Trust me. Okay, Stunty, thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael.
Can't wait for Friday. It will be around the same time as our stream or a little later. You have any idea at what time?
What stream are you having on Friday?
Your stream on Friday. Or maybe you put out an announcement, make an announcement, put it up.
Yeah, exactly. The people who follow me know that I usually do my streams quite spontaneously. I never announce them more than an hour before. I like to just do them because in my streams usually I play old music. I try to make a mixture of many different kinds of stuff that might be interesting. My latest stream, I played a jazz record from like the early 80s that a lot of people reacted very strongly about in a positive way. And I try to mix all kinds of stuff, and it's kind of improvised, so much so that like even making it is improvised. I feel like it now, and I do it. because of what we're doing, I will try to do it with a little more structure, not all the time. Hopefully, some of you who don't know me or who don't follow me as much will also follow the more spontaneous and freeform stuff. And yeah, let's say I will do I'll announce it on my channel, but it will be late afternoon on Friday or early evening.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, cool. Okay, that's it. First round. Can't wait for the second one, Stunty. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you to all the people. Sorry, I didn't focus too much on the message from everyone. I will read them when this is up later.
Yeah, I know how that is. Okay, thank you all. Bye. Great stuff.